Do you find yourself doing all the right things financially, cutting expenses, picking up a side hustle, maybe even budgeting until your eyes blur, and still feel like you're barely getting by? Well, no wonder, because these brute force tactics, the ones we've been told are responsible or disciplined, are actually the least effective ways to create long-lasting, deep change in any area of our lives, but especially when it comes to money. If you've been feeling like you're working harder than ever and still spinning your wheels, you're not imagining it. You're trapped in a system designed to keep you stuck on the earn, spend, and repeat hamster wheel of capitalism. But there's another way, a more powerful way, to step off that wheel and start building a life that's financially resilient, climate resilient, and capitalism resilient. And it doesn't start with budgeting. Not that budgeting is bad, but we want to think bigger. It starts with systems thinking, the little known but mighty tool you didn't know you were missing. Before we dive in, let's acknowledge the obvious. Our current economic and political systems have been rigged to siphon wealth from ordinary people like you and me into the pockets of billionaires, corporations, and even politicians. That leaves the rest of us having to work twice as hard just to stay afloat. While this video focuses on how to apply systems thinking to your finances, I hope you'll also see what a powerful tool it can be for every part of your life. Because one way we destabilize those harmful, large-scale systems is by rethinking the smaller systems we create, often unknowingly in our own lives. When most of us want to change something, our health, our finances, or the planet, we reach for brute force. We see that our income is smaller than our expenses, so we try to spend less or earn more. We step on a scale, see a number we don't like, and try to eat fewer calories. We see weeds in the garden and start yanking them out. The problem? None of these fix the underlying issue, because they're all short-term, surface-level reactions to symptoms of a much deeper system. If you pull weeds but don't change the conditions that allowed them to thrive, they'll grow right back. If you skip the Starbucks but keep the same consumption-driven habits, you'll be broke again next month. If you keep counting calories, eventually the cake wins because willpower is a finite resource. Brute force might work for a moment, but it rarely leads to lasting change. In fact, it can keep you stuck in the same loops. Donella Meadows, one of the most brilliant systems thinkers of our time, explained it this way. She said that when we want to change something, we usually focus on the lowest leverage points, the parts of a system that are easiest to see and measure, but the hardest to change meaningfully. In other words, we try to fix the numbers without trying to fix the systems that produce them. Let's look at money through this lens. Brute force thinking says, I just need to make more money. I just need to spend less. Sound familiar? We've all been there, but as you've probably noticed, it's exhausting and it rarely works for long. These tactics rely entirely on willpower, which burns out fast. And while we're counting pennies or clocking extra hours, the big systems that shape our financial reality, the job market, cost of living, our consumer addiction, and capitalism itself, stay untouched. We might save a few $100s by cutting expenses, but the system quietly siphons thousands through rising rents, interest on our debt, and inflation. It's like trying to empty a sinking boat with a teaspoon while someone keeps drilling holes in the hull. Meadows taught that systems have leverage points, places where small shifts can create big, lasting results. At the bottom are brute force fixes, pushing numbers around. Above that are behavioral changes, adjusting habits and routines. Then come system redesigns, changing the structures that shape our behaviors. And at the very top are paradigm shifts. In the case of money, that would involve changing what we value and invest in, as well as how we define success. These leverage points are so powerful. My Growing Free co-authors and I built an entire workshop around them called Revealing Hidden Paths to True Wealth. You'll find a link for it in the description below if you want to go deeper into this concept. But for now, let's explore how systems thinking transforms our relationship with money at each level. The brute force level is where a lot of conventional financial advice lives. Spend less, earn more, cut your lattes, take another gig. These might work for a while, but they don't plug the leak in the long run. And because they depend on willpower, they make you feel like you're constantly fighting yourself. You versus your bank account, you versus your impulses. No wonder it's exhausting. The behavioral change level shows us that instead of fighting your habits, you'd be smart to study them. Maybe you realize that you shop online after a stressful day because you're craving comfort. Instead of fighting that impulse, you replace it with something that actually restores you, like walking in nature, calling a friend, or reading. You might automate your savings so you're not relying on self-discipline every month, or take a break from using credit cards to remove that temptation entirely and build that resistance muscle. These are system-supported choices that make the healthy choice the easy choice. When we get to the third level, we get into redesigning the structures that shape behavior. Think of systems as structures and processes that shape your daily flow of energy, time, and resources. If you're constantly in debt, it's likely not just a spending problem, it's a system problem. And yes, existing in our current harmful extractive capitalist system is part of the problem as well, but we can create smarter systems in our lives to make ourselves less susceptible to it. Maybe your housing costs are too high, or your income too unstable. Maybe the entire consumer culture is keeping you running to stand still. Systemic solutions look like volunteering at a community garden to share in the harvest, helping to create a community childcare network that saves everyone time and money, seeking out swap meets and tool libraries instead of buying new stuff, and reaching out to your network to find a place to park or live in an RV or tiny home to reduce your housing costs. These are regenerative systems which you can think of as money ecosystems that save resources while building community resilience. And it's at the paradigm shift level where transformation truly happens. Instead of chasing financial success defined by accumulation, we start defining wealth by resilience, relationships, and right livelihood. We move from competition to collaboration, from extraction to regeneration, from scarcity to sufficiency. Because once you realize that money is just one form of capital alongside others like social, cultural, living, and experiential capital, you can design a life abundant in all of them. That's not to say financial capital doesn't play an important role in our current reality. It certainly does. But instead of spending and managing it in ways that keep you stuck on that capitalist hamster wheel, you're going to start putting your money to work acquiring things like useful skills as well as tools and equipment you can turn into reliable income streams, along with other regenerative assets and investments that enrich you and your community while defunding those corporations that are exploiting you. I talk a lot more about what building regenerative wealth looks like in this video, if you want to watch that one next. So when we talk about beating the system, what we really mean is transcending it. When you understand systems thinking, you stop wasting energy on low leverage fixes that only treat symptoms. Instead, you design feedback loops that make healthy, sustainable behavior automatic. You stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like a designer of your finances, your lifestyle, and your community. That's when life starts to feel spacious again. Instead of budgeting to the bone, you're planting abundance, financially, emotionally, and ecologically. Instead of hustling harder, you're letting regenerative systems do the heavy lifting for you. That's what we mean by growing free. Financially resilient and economically, ecologically, and ethically empowered. It's not about escaping responsibility, it's about reclaiming agency. It's about using systems thinking to design lives that meet our needs in elegant, regenerative, and joyful ways. And to be clear, there's still a place for brute force. Just like counting calories can fine-tune an athlete's performance, tracking your spending can be a useful support as you work to align the bigger systems in your life. As your habits, systems, and paradigms begin to start supporting your goals, those little tweaks become powerful precision tools instead of desperate survival tactics. So yes, track your expenses and adjust your budget, but as part of a larger, wiser system designed to sustain the life you actually want. When we apply systems thinking to money, we're not just managing finances, we're designing ecosystems of resilience. We're building lives that are anti-fragile, able to bend with the storms of late-stage capitalism and climate change instead of breaking under them. We're cultivating multiple forms of wealth, financial capital for flexibility, social capital through cooperation, natural capital through gardening and ecological restoration, cultural capital through creativity and shared values, and time capital through simplicity and slower living. Together, these weave a safety net far stronger than relying only on a savings account. Here's the paradox. You can't beat a system by playing by its rules, but you can outsmart it by changing the game. When you stop defining success by consumption and start defining it by connection, contribution, and coherence with your values, you become less complicit in the system that profits from your exhaustion. You stop feeding the machine that's destroying both your spirit and the planet, and you start building an alternative economy, one rooted in sufficiency, reciprocity, and regeneration. That's what real wealth looks like. That's what it means to become free. So start small, but think big. Ask yourself, what brute force habits am I relying on that aren't actually working for me? What systems could I build to make the right choices automatic? What paradigm shifts would truly set me free? Maybe you start by automating your savings, joining your local Buy Nothing group, or foraging some of those mulberries that litter the sidewalks in your neighborhood in the spring. Maybe you shift from only chasing money to also cultivating multiple forms of capital that enrich your life. Whatever it looks like, remember, you're not only improving your finances, you're transforming your life. You're learning to design for resilience, not just react to crisis. You're becoming the architect of your own freedom.